On the far side of the galaxy there was a planet named Livoria. Livoria was home to an old and proud people called the Lithari. Their cities sparkled with silver towers, and their technology was far ahead of anything found on Earth. But even in a place so advanced, life was not simple, especially for Princess Yelena. Yelena was known across many worlds as the most beautiful princess alive. She had long silver hair that shimmered in the sun, deep blue skin, and eyes like bright green gems. Her beauty and wisdom were famous, but she was also famous for something else. Yelena had turned down every suitor who tried to win her heart. Kings, princes, and rich nobles had all come to Livoria to ask for her hand. Some brought gifts of gold or rare gems, some promised her power or whole planets. Others tried to show their strength by winning in games or battles. But Yelena turned away from all of them. No matter what they offered, the royal council watched with worry. Yelena was the only child of King Tavian and Queen Risa. She would one day be queen. The people needed a strong ruler and an heir to the throne. If Yelena refused to choose, there could be trouble for the royal family and the whole empire. In their meetings, the council spoke often about how to help Yelena find the right match. Some said she was too proud, others thought she was too wise, and some even whispered that no Lithari or alien could ever reach her heart. In her private chambers, Yelena often sat by her window, looking out at the gardens. She did not want to hurt anyone, but she felt lost. All her life, people treated her like a prize or a trophy. No one seemed to care about her true self. She wanted something more. She wanted someone who would see her as a person, not just a princess. On Earth, news about Livoria sometimes reached people through the stars. There were stories of advanced technology, floating cities, and even magic. Earth was still new to the galaxy, and many aliens thought humans were simple and backward, but a new program was about to change that. The Livoria Council, wanting better ties with Earth, announced a special exchange. A group of humans would be invited to Livoria. For learning and friendship, hundreds of people wanted to go. In the end, only a few were chosen. One of them was a young engineer named Ethan. Ethan lived a quiet life in a small town, fixing machines and helping his neighbors. He loved puzzles and building things with his hands. When he got the message that he had been selected, Ethan could hardly believe it. He had never traveled far from home, and now he would be going to another planet. His friends and family were proud but worried. Ethan promised them he would be careful and would send messages home. The trip to Livoria took 2 weeks. The humans traveled in a special ship made by the Lithari. Everything inside was bright and smooth, almost like it was alive. Ethan met the other humans, a teacher named Lavra, a scientist named Steve, and a doctor named Megan. They were all excited and a little afraid. They spent their days learning about Livoria, its history, its people, and its customs. When the ship landed, the humans looked out the windows in awe. The city was bigger than anything they had ever seen. Tall buildings rose into the sky, covered in green plants and shining lights. Flying cars zipped quietly from one place to another. The air smelled fresh and sweet, full of new scents. A welcome group waited for them at the landing area. The Lithari wore clothes made of thin, soft material that glowed in different colors. Most of them had skin in shades of blue or green, and their eyes were bright and curious. The humans felt nervous as they stepped out of the ship. There was a formal speech from a Lithari leader, who welcomed them as friends. Among the crowd, Yelena stood with her parents and the council. She watched the humans with interest. Most aliens had come to see the new arrivals. Some whispered about how plain the humans looked, while others laughed at their simple clothes and awkward movements. But Yelena was curious. She had never met a human before. The humans were brought into the palace, where they would stay during their visit. The palace was huge, full of art and music. The halls were wide, with windows looking out over gardens and lakes. Servants showed the humans to their rooms, which were comfortable and full of small gifts. Ethan spent his first night on Livoria lying awake, thinking about everything he had seen. He wondered what his family was doing back home. He wondered if he would fit in here, or if the aliens would always see him as a strange outsider. But he promised himself to do his best and to treat everyone with respect. The next day, there was a big feast in the palace. Yelena was there, sitting next to her mother. Ethan and the other humans sat at a special table. The food was full of new tastes, some sweet, some sharp, and some that changed flavor as you chewed them. The Lithari guests talked about science and art. Many asked the humans about their lives and their world. Some tried to impress the princes with stories or jokes, but Yelena only smiled politely. She did not seem interested in any of them. Ethan did not talk much during the meal. He watched and listened, trying to understand the strange customs. When dessert was served, there was a sudden commotion near the fountain. One of the water sculptures stopped working, and water began to spill on the floor. Servants rushed over, but no one knew how to fix it. Ethan stood up and walked over to look at the broken fountain. He asked if he could help. The servants looked unsure, but Yelena nodded for him to try. Ethan knelt down and opened the side of the machine. He saw that a piece had come loose and water was leaking out. Using a small tool from his pocket, he fixed the part and put everything back in place. The fountain started working again, and everyone clapped. Yelena watched Ethan closely. She noticed that he did not brag or make a big show. He only smiled and returned to his seat. For the first time, Yelena felt something new. She wondered what it would be like to talk to this human who did not try to impress her with gifts or fancy words. After the meal, Yelena found a reason to thank Ethan. She asked him how he learned to fix things, and they talked about machines and Earth. Ethan was honest and told her stories about his family and his life. He did not hide that he sometimes made mistakes or felt unsure. Yelena liked his honesty. She decided she wanted to know more about him. That evening, the council met to talk about the human guests. Some worried that the humans were too simple for Lavoria. Others thought the visit was going well. Yelena surprised everyone by saying she thought Ethan was interesting and clever. Her words made a few council members uneasy. They wondered if the princess was starting to care about the human. They decided to watch closely. Ethan, meanwhile, wrote a long letter to his family. He told them about the beautiful city, the food, and how he had fixed the fountain. He did not know that his small act had changed how Princess Yelena saw him. As the stars shone outside his window, Ethan hoped that tomorrow would be just as interesting. The next morning on Livoria, Ethan woke up early. The soft light in his room changed colors, slowly turning from pale blue to warm gold. He got out of bed and walked to the window. The city outside looked peaceful, with long green gardens and tall silver towers shining under the sun. For a moment he wondered what his friends back on Earth would think if they could see this place. He dressed in the simple clothes the Lithari had given him, then made his way to the main hall. The other humans, Lava, Steve, and Megan, were already there. They were talking about their plans for the day. A Lithari guide named Aaron came to lead them on a tour of the palace. Aaron explained the history of each room, the meaning behind the art on the walls, and the stories of old Lithari heroes. Everything was bright and beautiful, but Ethan found himself thinking about the fountain he fixed the night before, and about Princess Yelena while the group walked through the halls. Ethan noticed that many Lithari staff watched them closely. Some of the alien servants whispered as the humans passed, and a few even smiled, but most Lithari nobles kept their distance. Ethan felt like an outsider, but he tried to be polite to everyone he met. After the tour, there was a special meeting with the royal family. King Tavian and Queen Risa sat on high chairs made of clear stone. Yelena stood beside them, dressed in a long gown that seemed to change color with the light. She greeted the humans and thanked them for coming to Livoria. Her voice was calm and soft. Ethan listened carefully, trying not to stare. When Yelena's eyes met his, she gave him a small, kind smile. The king welcomed each visitor and asked them about their world. Lavra spoke about teaching children on Earth. Steve talked about science, and Megan shared stories of healing. When it was Ethan's turn, he spoke about his work fixing machines. He explained how he liked to solve problems and help people. The king nodded, and Yelena looked at Ethan with interest. After the meeting, the humans were allowed to walk in the palace gardens. The gardens were huge, full of strange and beautiful flowers, soft grass, and tall blue trees. There were pools of water with bright fish and gentle birds with shiny wings. Ethan wandered alone for a while, breathing in the sweet air. He heard footsteps behind him and turned to see Princess Yelena. She asked if she could join him, and he said yes. They walked together along a path lined with silver stones. Yelena asked about his family, and Ethan told her about his parents and his younger brother. He spoke simply, not trying to impress her. He asked Yelena about her life as a princess. She was quiet for a moment, then said it was hard to be in the center of everything, always watched and judged. She said she wished she could have a normal day, just once. Ethan said he understood what it was like to feel alone, even when surrounded by people. Yelena looked at him with surprise. She told him that most people just wanted her to make decisions or follow old rules. But he listened and did not push her to say more. They walked together for a long time, talking about little things, the weather, the sound of the birds, and how different Livoria was from Earth. After their walk, Ethan returned to the palace, feeling both happy and confused. He liked talking to Yelena, but he did not know if he should hope for more. Back inside, he saw that some of the Lithari nobles were watching him and whispering. One, a tall man named Derek, looked angry and turned away. Ethan guessed Derek might be one of the suitors who wanted to marry Yelena. Later that day, the humans attended a class on Lithari technology. The teacher showed them strange devices and explained how everything on Livoria was made to work in harmony with nature. Ethan asked many questions and was excited to learn new things. The teacher was surprised by his curiosity and skill. Yelena came to watch the class. She listened to Ethan's questions and smiled when he found clever answers. When the class ended, Yelena asked Ethan if he would help her understand one of the machines in the garden. Ethan agreed, happy to spend more time with her. Together, they walked to the garden. Yelena showed Ethan a small device that made the flowers change color. It was not working well, and she did not want to ask the royal engineers. Ethan looked at it carefully and figured out the problem. He explained it to Yelena as he fixed it. She listened closely, asking questions and laughing when he made a joke about the machine being stubborn. After he fixed it, Yelena thanked him and said she wished she could spend more days learning from him. The news spread quickly in the palace that the princess and the human were spending time together. Some servants were happy, saying Yelena looked brighter than before. Others whispered that it was not right for a princess to be so close to a human. The council met in private, worried that Yelena was not showing interest in any Lithari suitor. They decided to keep a close watch on Ethan. That evening, a small event was held in the palace courtyard. There was music and dancing, and the air was filled with the sweet smell of fruit and flowers. Yelena invited Ethan to sit with her. Some Lithari nobles frowned and turned away, but Yelena did not seem to care. She told Ethan about a festival coming soon where people would light lanterns and share hopes for the future. She asked if he would like to join her for the festival, and Ethan said yes. He felt honored by her trust. When the music started, Yelena stood and asked Ethan if he would dance. Ethan laughed and said he was not a good dancer, but Yelena said she did not care. She led him gently onto the dance floor. At first, Ethan was nervous, but Yelena guided him with patience. Soon he relaxed, and they laughed together as they danced under the glowing lights. The other guests watched in surprise, but Yelena and Ethan did not seem to notice. For a moment, they were just two people enjoying a simple dance. After the dance, Ethan and Yelena sat quietly, looking up at the stars. Yelena asked Ethan what he wished for most. Ethan thought for a moment, then said he wished to find a place where he belonged and to make a difference in the world. Yelena said she wished for the courage to follow her own heart, even if it meant making hard choices. Their conversation was interrupted by Derek, who walked over with a forced smile. He greeted Yelena and ignored Ethan. Derek tried to make jokes and show off his knowledge of other worlds. Yelena listened politely but soon turned back to Ethan. Derek looked angry, but he did not say anything more. Later, as the evening ended, Yelena thanked Ethan for the dance and for talking with her. She said she looked forward to the festival. Ethan watched her walk away, feeling a strange hope inside. He wondered if he had made a friend or maybe something more. Back in his room, Ethan thought about the day. He felt happy and proud, but also a little worried. He knew that being close to the princes could cause problems, but he also felt that he was finally doing something important. He promised himself to always be honest with Yelena and to respect her wishes. As the night grew quiet, Ethan looked out his window at the city of Lavoria. The stars above seemed brighter than ever. He did not know what the future would bring, but he was ready to face it. Somewhere in the palace, Yelena also looked out at the stars, thinking about the human who was so different from everyone she had ever met. For the first time in a long time, she felt hope for the days to come. The days passed quickly on Livoria. Ethan woke each morning full of excitement. He wanted to see what new things he could learn and who he might meet. The other humans grew busy with their own projects, but Ethan found himself spending more time with Princess Yelena. One morning, Yelena sent a message to Ethan, asking if he would join her for a walk in the city. Ethan felt nervous, but he quickly agreed. He wore his cleanest clothes and tried to smooth his hair. When he stepped out, Yelena was waiting for him by the palace gate. She wore a simple dress and had her hair pulled back. For the first time, she looked more like a regular person than a royal princess. They left the palace and walked together through the busy city streets. The city was full of color and music. There were street markets where people sold fruit and bright cloth, and there were artists painting pictures under the sun. Yelena showed Ethan a park where she used to play as a child. She pointed to a small pond with silver fish and told him about her favorite games. Ethan listened with interest. He asked questions, and Yelena answered each one with a smile. As they walked, some people recognized Yelena and bowed. Yelena smiled back, but Ethan noticed she looked a little sad each time. He asked her if it was hard being a princess. Yelena said yes. She told him that sometimes she felt lonely, even in a crowd. Everyone expected her to be perfect, to make the right choices for everyone else. She worried that she would disappoint her family or her people. Ethan said he could understand. He told her that back on Earth, he also felt pressure, but in different ways. He worried about taking care of his family, doing good work, and making the right decisions. He said he was not always perfect, but he tried to do his best. Yelena said she liked that about him. She said that being with him made her feel less alone. They stopped for lunch at a small outdoor cafe. The table was shaded by a blue tree. Yelena ordered a light meal for them, and they shared different foods, laughing when Ethan made a face at a spicy dish. Yelena told him that she did not often get to relax like this. She said it was rare for her to spend time with someone who did not want anything from her except friendship. After lunch, they walked to a library full of old books and new screens. Yelena showed Ethan some of her favorite stories from Lithari history. Ethan shared stories from Earth, talking about the moon landing and the first computers. Yelena listened closely and asked many questions. They discovered that both their people loved stories about hope and courage. In the late afternoon, Yelena took Ethan to a quiet hill outside the city. From there, they could see the whole city spread out below, with its silver towers and green gardens. The sky above was full of soft blue and pink clouds. Yelena said she came here when she wanted to think. She told Ethan she liked the peace and the feeling that anything was possible. Ethan thanked her for sharing her special place. He said he felt lucky to know her and to see Livoria in such a personal way. Yelena smiled and said that he was different from anyone she had ever met. She said he did not treat her like a prize or a mystery. He treated her like a real person. As the sun began to set, Yelena and Ethan walked back to the palace. On the way, they talked about their dreams for the future. Ethan said he hoped to help people and maybe make life better for both humans and Lithari. Yelena said she wanted to be a good queen one day, but also wanted happiness for herself. They promised to help each other whenever they could. That night, there was a small celebration in the palace gardens. The Festival of Lights had arrived, and everyone in the city took part. Lanterns of many colors floated in the air, and music played all around. People wrote their hopes on small pieces of paper and tied them to the lanterns before letting them float up into the night sky. Yelena asked Ethan if he wanted to join her for the festival. Ethan said yes, and together they wrote their wishes. Ethan wished for courage and friendship, and Yelena wished for freedom to choose her own path. They released their lanterns together and watched as the lights floated up with hundreds of others, shining brightly against the stars. During the festival, other Lithari nobles watched Ethan and Yelena. Some were angry and jealous, especially Derek. Derek tried to make jokes about Ethan's clothes and simple ways, but Ethan only smiled and laughed with Yelena. Some nobles tried to get Yelena's attention with gifts and stories, but she stayed. With Ethan, people whispered about how the princess seemed happy for the first time in a long while. Later that evening, Ethan and Yelena found a quiet place by the garden lake. They talked about their worlds, their families, and their hopes for peace between humans and Lithari. Yelena asked Ethan if he missed Earth. Ethan said yes, but he was also happy to be on Lavoria and to have met her. Yelena said she hoped he would stay for a long time. The music grew softer as the night continued. Yelena and Ethan sat close, feeling comfortable together. Yelena told Ethan that she was afraid of letting people down, but he told her that being true to herself was the most important thing. He said that the best leaders cared about their people, but also needed to follow their own hearts. Yelena listened quietly and nodded. She said she wanted to be brave and make her own choices, even if it was hard. While they talked, Derek watched them from a distance. He felt angry and jealous. He decided to tell the council that the princess was growing too, close to the human. Derek hoped that by doing this, he would have another chance to win Yelena's heart. After the festival, Ethan walked back to his room, feeling peaceful and hopeful. He thought about everything that had happened since he arrived. He was grateful for the friendship he had found with Yelena. He wrote in his notebook, trying to remember every detail so he could tell his family back home. He wondered what tomorrow would bring. Yelena stayed in the gardens a little longer, looking up at the sky. She felt a new sense of hope. She was glad she had met Ethan. He made her laugh and helped her see the world in a new way. She decided to talk to her parents soon about what she really wanted for her future. The next day, the council met in private. Derek spoke to them about his worries. He said that Yelena was forgetting her duty and spending too much time with the human. Some council members agreed, but others said that Yelena seemed happier than ever. The king listened quietly and said he would speak to his daughter. Later that day, Yelena was called to see her father. King Tevian asked her about Ethan and why she was spending time with him. Yelena answered honestly. She said Ethan was kind and thoughtful, and he made her feel understood. She said she wanted to get to know him better. The king was surprised by her honesty, but he said he trusted her judgment. He told her to be careful, as not everyone in the palace would approve. Ethan did not know about this meeting. He spent his day helping Steve and Megan with a science project in the palace workshop. He also fixed a few small machines for the staff. People in the palace started to see him as helpful and friendly. Some of the servants even brought him small gifts, like sweet fruits or a cup of warm tea. In the evening, Yelena found Ethan in the workshop. She thanked him for his kindness and help. She asked if he would join her for another walk the next day. Ethan said yes, happy to have more time with her. The days on Lavoria were growing brighter for both of them. Their friendship was stronger than ever, and both Ethan and Yelena felt hope for the future. They knew there would be challenges, but they also knew they could face them together, one day at a time. The sun rose early over Livoria, and the palace was filled with quiet energy. There was a sense of change in the air. Ethan had grown used to waking up in his simple room, hearing the distant sound of music and the gentle wind through the open windows. He felt a mixture of hope and worry each morning now, because his friendship with Yelena had become the talk of the palace. That morning, Ethan went for a walk in the palace gardens before breakfast. The paths were cool and shaded by tall blue trees. Birds with shimmering feathers sang softly from the branches. Ethan found a quiet bench and sat for a while, thinking about Yelena. He wondered if he would be able to stay on Livoria or if he would be asked to leave soon. He wanted to help Yelena be happy, but he did not want to cause trouble. Not long after, Yelena found him in the garden. She wore a soft green dress and smiled when she saw him. They walked together and talked about the day ahead. Yelena told Ethan that her father, King Tavian, wanted to see her. She was a little nervous, but she said she would speak honestly with him. Later that morning, Yelena went to the king's chambers. King Tavian was sitting at his desk, reading reports from the council. He asked Yelena to sit down. He told her that some members of the council were worried about her friendship with Ethan. He asked if she really understood what she was doing. Yelena nodded and explained how Ethan made her feel free and understood. She said she did not want to marry a prince just because the council wanted it. She wanted to choose her own path, even if it was difficult. King Tavian listened quietly. He told Yelena that he loved her and trusted her, but that there would be challenges if she continued to go against the old ways. Yelena said she was ready for those challenges. In the afternoon, a big announcement was made. The royal council had decided that there would be a formal event in the palace. Every suitor who wished to marry Princess Yelena would have a final chance to impress her and the council. The event would take place in 3 days, and everyone in the palace was invited to watch. The news spread quickly. Some people were excited, and others were nervous. Ethan heard about the announcement from one of the servants. He felt his heart sink. He did not see himself as a suitor and had never planned to compete for Yelena's hand. He worried that he would not be welcome at the event. But later, Yelena found him and told him that she wanted him to come. She said she needed his support and friendship more than ever. Ethan promised that he would be there for her, no matter what happened. The next days were busy in the palace. The gardens were decorated with bright flowers and floating lights. The kitchens prepared special food, and the musicians practiced new songs. All the suitors prepared gifts and speeches. Some planned to show their skills in music or dance. Others would try to impress the council with stories of their courage or with rare treasures from far worlds. Derek was the most eager. He was sure he could finally win Yelena's heart. Ethan spent his days helping in small ways. He fixed machines in the kitchen and helped the servants move decorations. He tried not to think too much about the coming event, but he knew it would be important for Yelena. He wanted her to feel strong and free. The night before the event, Yelena could not sleep. She walked through the empty halls of the palace, thinking about the future. She wondered if she was brave enough to stand up for what she believed. She missed her mother, Queen Risa, who was away on a diplomatic mission. Yelena wished she could talk to her mother about love and choice. She sat by her window, looking at the city lights, and promised herself to speak the truth, no matter what happened. The morning of the event arrived. The palace was filled with guests from all over Livoria and even from other planets. The main hall was decorated with shining banners and tall silver pillars. Music played softly as the suitors arrived, dressed in their finest clothes. The council members sat at the front with King Tavian beside them. Yelena wore a gown of pale blue and silver. She walked into the hall with her head held high, but her heart was beating quickly. She looked for Ethan and saw him standing near the back of the room. He smiled at her, and she felt a little braver. The event began with music and speeches from the council. One by one, the suitors came forward. Derek told stories of his victories in battle and gave Yelena a box of rare gems. Another suitor played a beautiful song on a silver instrument. Others read poems or gave her books filled with wisdom. The council listened and watched, hoping Yelena would finally choose one of them. When it was Ethan's turn, he did not bring a gift or try to impress the council with stories. He walked slowly to the front of the hall and looked at Yelena. He spoke simply and honestly. He said he did not come from a powerful family or a rich world. He told everyone that he cared about honesty, kindness, and freedom. He said he wanted Yelena to be happy and to choose her own future. The hall grew quiet as Ethan finished his words. Some people looked confused, while others nodded in agreement. Yelena smiled at Ethan and felt a wave of relief. She knew then that she did not want to choose anyone but him. After all the suitors had finished, the council asked Yelena to make her choice. The room was silent as she stood and looked at the faces around her. She thanked all the suitors for their gifts and kind words. She said she was grateful for their respect and their effort. Then she said she could not follow old traditions and choose a suitor for the sake of the council or the people. Yelena spoke with a strong voice. She said she wanted the right to choose her own future. She said she respected the council and loved her people, but her heart belonged to someone who did not ask for riches or power. She looked at Ethan and smiled. The room was shocked. Some nobles gasped, and a few whispered loudly. King Tavian watched his daughter carefully. He stood and put a gentle hand on her shoulder. He said he was proud of her for speaking honestly. The council was not pleased. They said the future of Livoria was at risk if Yelena did not follow tradition. Yelena answered that a future built on truth and love would always be stronger than one built on fear and old rules. The event ended in confusion. Some guests left quickly, while others stayed to watch what would happen next. Yelena stood tall beside her father, while Ethan waited quietly at the back of the hall. The council said they would meet the next day to decide what to do. Yelena left the hall with Ethan by her side, feeling scared but also free for the first time in her life. That night, Ethan and Yelena sat together in the palace gardens. They did not need to speak much. They looked at the stars and listened to the quiet sound of water from the fountain Ethan had fixed days ago. Yelena took Ethan's hand and thanked him for his courage. Ethan said he was proud of her for telling the truth. Yelena knew there would be hard days ahead, but she did not feel alone anymore. She had chosen her own path, and she had a friend who would stand with her no matter what happened. As the night grew quiet, she felt hope growing in her heart like the first light of morning after a long night. 3 days passed since the grand event. The palace felt different now. People moved quietly through the halls. Some looked at Princess Yelena with silent support. Others stared with disapproval. The royal council met every morning, discussing what to do about Yelena's choice. King Tavian gave the council time to think, but the mood was tense. Ethan woke early, feeling troubled. He walked through the empty corridors to find Yelena. When he found her in the sunlit garden, she looked sad but determined. He greeted her. Softly, Yelena gave him a small smile and said, "Thank you for standing by me." Ethan said he would always stand by her, no matter what. The next day, the council announced a test. They would set a challenge to prove that Ethan was worthy of Livoria. It would not be a test of strength or power. Instead, it would be a test of heart, to show that he understood Lithari values and could care for their people. The test would take place in the Great Hall. Representatives from each district would give Ethan a task to complete. If he showed kindness and empathy, the council might accept him. If not, Yelena's choice would bring shame to the throne. On the day of the test, Ethan entered the hall carrying only himself. He wore simple clothes, but he stood tall. The hall was filled with people from every corner of Livoria. Some had come to see Ethan fail. Others had come to support him. Yelena sat with her father near the front, watching quietly. The first representative stepped forward. He was a farmer from the plains. He held a small child in his arms. The child's face was pale and weak. The farmer said that his village had been hit by a strange illness. The child needed medicine, but the village was far, and the roads were rough. He asked Ethan to help him get medicine to the child. Ethan knelt beside the child and smiled gently. He said he would do his best. The council placed a small kit of medicinal supplies in Ethan's hands. A guide would accompany him. Ethan left the hall, carrying the kit carefully. Yelena watched him go, her heart filled with hope. The journey was not easy. The roads to the farm were broken by heavy rains. Ethan and the guide, a kind woman named Myra, walked slowly, carrying medicine and comfort items. When they reached the village, they found many sick people. Ethan helped the healer prepare the medicine, giving dosages and helping care for the children. He wiped the sweat from a feverish child's forehead and held her hand so she would feel safe. The villagers watched Ethan with new respect. He did not look like a warrior or a noble, but he cared deeply. The healer thanked Ethan, saying the child's fever had gone down. The farmer bowed to Ethan, tears in his eyes. Ethan told the farmer and the healer to send word when they needed more help. Then he returned to the palace. When Ethan arrived, some council members nodded with approval. Others looked uncertain. Yelena ran to him and hugged him tightly. Ethan told her about the village, and Yelena's eyes filled with pride. Next, another representative came forward. She was an artist from the City of Art. She showed Ethan a mural that had been damaged. The mural was a memory of the Lithary's founding, painted on the palace walls long ago. It had faded and cracked over time. She asked Ethan if he could help restore a small part of the mural to its original beauty. Ethan agreed. He was led to the mural, where bright paints were chipped and missing. The artist showed him how the colors had once blended and moved. Ethan asked questions, holding her hand to steady his brush. He mixed paints carefully, matching the shades. He painted a section of the mural, blending colors with gentle strokes. Though he was not trained as an artist, Ethan worked with care. The small section he painted brought life back to a scene of two Lithari reaching for the stars. The crowd that watched began to clap softly. Ethan bowed his head to the artist, and she embraced him, applauding his work. Back in the Great Hall, the council watched videos and reports of Ethan's deeds. Many members were surprised by his empathy and skill. Some whispered that perhaps a human could indeed understand and respect Lithari traditions. The third and final task was the hardest. A council elder, a wise woman named Sarah, spoke. She said that the final test was a question of justice. She brought forward a young Lithari who had been accused of stealing a valuable gem. The youth denied the charge and said it was a mistake. Sarah asked Ethan to judge the youth's case and decide if the youth was guilty or innocent. Ethan felt the weight of the moment. He walked to the youth and knelt to be at eye level. He asked gentle questions about the day of the theft. He listened as the youth told their story, voice trembling. Ethan noticed tears in the youth's eyes and heard sincerity in their words. Then Ethan examined the evidence. The gem had been found under the youth's belongings, but the youth said they had found it on the street and kept it safe. Ethan asked to speak with witnesses. One guard said they saw the youth near the gem earlier. Another villager said they saw someone drop something shiny in the street. Ethan thought carefully. He asked the guard to check the street records for any strange sightings. A clerk brought a recording showing a small creature had dropped the gem when startled by a passing merchant. The guard had seen the youth pick it up and assumed theft. Ethan stood before the council and spoke clearly. He said the youth was innocent. He explained the evidence and how the youth had acted out of kindness, not greed. The council elder Sarah nodded, impressed by Ethan's careful judgment. Yelena watched with tears in her eyes. The crowd in the hall began to cheer. The council was silent for a moment, then erupted in applause. Even some of the most strict members smiled at Ethan's fairness and mercy. King Tevian rose and spoke to the council. He said that Ethan had passed every test and had shown what it meant to care for the people of Livoria. He said Yelena's choice was wise and that Ethan should be accepted as her partner. The council conferred in quiet voices, then returned to the hall. The lead elder stood and announced that they would honor Yelena's choice. Ethan's actions had shown that love, kindness, and honesty were the true strengths of a ruler and her consort. The hall erupted in cheers. Yelena ran to Ethan and embraced him. Ethan held her gently and whispered words of comfort. The people cheered their names as they stood together. That night, a celebration was held in the palace ballroom. Music and laughter filled the air. Ethan and Yelena stood at the center, holding hands. The council members presented them with a symbol of unity, a silver crown for Yelena and a simple band for Ethan, both inscribed with the word hope. In his speech, King Tevian spoke of the new era. He said that humans and Lithari could learn from each other. He said that Yelena's bravery would guide their people into a future of peace. Yelena thanked her father and then spoke. She said she loved Ethan for his kindness and his honest heart. She said she was proud to choose her own path and share it with him. Ethan spoke next. He thanked the people of Livoria for accepting him. He said he would do his best to honor their trust. He promised to work with Yelena to build a better future for both their worlds. As the music played, Yelena and Ethan danced slowly. Around them, the crowd watched in wonder. The once untouchable princess had found someone who saw her for who she truly was, and the human had found a place where he belonged. The Night grew late, but the celebration continued under the stars. Lanterns floated in the air, and laughter echoed through the palace. Yelena and Ethan stood at a balcony looking at the city lights below. Hand in hand, they watched the people of Lavoria rejoice in their new hope. For the first time in a long time, Yelena felt peace in her heart. She had chosen love over tradition. Ethan had earned his place with kindness and empathy. Together they would face whatever came next, side by side, and so the great test was complete, and a new dawn rose. For both Lavoria and Earth, their journey of hope and unity had only just begun. After the celebration, the palace returned to its normal rhythm, but nothing felt the same. Ethan woke to the soft glow of Lavoria's sunrise, feeling a mix of joy and nerves. He thought about the future and what it would mean to be with Princess Yelena every day. Yelena found Ethan in the garden that morning. She wore a simple white dress, and her silver hair was loose around her shoulders. She greeted him with a bright smile and offered her hand. Together they walked past the fountains and under the blue trees. Yelena said she had spoken with the council and they would allow Ethan to stay on Livoria. But there was still much to learn. Ethan nodded, grateful for the chance. They spent the day together. Ethan helped Yelena meet with her council advisors. He listened as they spoke of trade agreements, farming plans, and new schools. Ethan asked questions and offered simple ideas from Earth. The advisors were curious about his views. Yelena watched him with pride. She saw how his kindness and fresh ideas made a difference. In the afternoon, Yelena took Ethan to the royal library. The library was vast, filled with tall shelves of books and glowing crystals. Yelena showed Ethan a hidden room where the family's history was kept. Ancient scrolls told stories of past queens and kings. Yelena carefully read passages aloud, and Ethan listened with respect. He asked about traditions and ceremonies. Yelena answered, and together they dreamed of combining Lithari and human customs in the future. That evening, the palace held a small dinner in honor of Ethan. Friends and family of Yelena joined, including King Tavian and Queen Risa. Queen Risa had returned and hugged her daughter warmly. She then turned to Ethan and thanked him for caring for Yelena. Ethan bowed and said he was happy to be there. They all shared a simple meal of fresh fruit, soft bread, and sweet tea. During dinner, Queen Risa spoke of her own love story, how she chose King Tavian against many objections. Her words gave Yelena strength and hope. Yelena smiled and touched Ethan's hand under the table. Ethan felt his heart warm. After dinner, Yelena led Ethan to a private balcony. The city lights of Lavoria sparkled below, and the sky was filled with shooting stars. Yelena said the stars reminded her of Earth's night sky and how the universe was bigger than any one world. She asked Ethan if he ever felt afraid of the unknown. Ethan said he did, but with friends and love, fear seemed smaller. Yelena leaned on his shoulder, feeling safe. The next days were filled with lessons. Ethan learned to speak more of the Lithari language and customs. He practiced formal greetings and studied their history. Yelena joined him in classes, and they laughed at each other's mistakes. The bond between them grew stronger. One morning, Yelena received troubling news. A small fleet of warships from a nearby system had arrived near Livoria's borders. The message was clear. They hoped to test Livoria's strength and perhaps claim part of its resources. The council was in panic. King Tavian called an emergency meeting. Yelena invited Ethan to speak. In the council chamber, Ethan listened to. The advisors discussed strategies and war plans. Yelena asked him what he thought. Ethan stood and spoke calmly. He said that humans had faced threats before and that sometimes the best defense was friendship. He proposed sending envoys and gifts of peace before making any threats. Some advisors frowned, but others nodded at his logic. King Tavian turned to Yelena. She asked for time to prepare a message of peace and unity with Ethan's help. The council agreed, though some remained uneasy. Yelena and Ethan worked through the night, writing letters and preparing gifts of Lithari art and human books. They spoke of mutual respect and cooperation. At dawn, envoys boarded ships to deliver their gifts. The waiting was tense. For 2 days, Lavoria held its breath. Then the envoys returned with messages of surprise and admiration. The other system had expected war. Instead, they were offered friendship. Their leaders agreed to meet in talks. The council and the people celebrated. Yelena and Ethan looked at each other with relief. In the weeks that followed, Livoria and the neighboring system held meetings. Yelena and Ethan joined each session, learning about diplomacy and compromise. Ethan's gentle words and honest heart impressed the visitors. They spoke of joint research projects and shared trade. The new alliance brought peace. As peace grew, Yelena and Ethan found moments of calm. They explored the palace gardens, rode in flying carriages, and visited the city's markets. They danced at small festivals and wrote letters home. Ethan missed Earth, but he felt at home on Livoria. Yelena felt stronger as a leader with Ethan by her side. One day, Yelena invited Ethan to stand before the people in the city square. She wore her queen's robes and a small crown of silver. Ethan stood beside her, wearing a suit made in Lithari style. Yelena spoke to the crowd about unity between humans and Lithari. She introduced Ethan as her consort, her partner in life, and in leadership. The people cheered, waving flags of both Earth and Livoria. Ethan spoke briefly, thanking the people for accepting him. He said he would serve them with all his heart. The crowd applauded, and Ethan and Yelena smiled at each other. In that moment, they knew their bond had changed two worlds. That night, in the palace, Yelena and Ethan stood on the balcony. The twin moons shone overhead. Yelena took Ethan's hand and said she loved him. Ethan said he loved her too. They shared a gentle kiss as the wind whispered through the trees. Life on Livoria settled into a new rhythm. Yelena and Ethan worked together, sharing ideas and caring for their people. They balanced tradition and change, always remembering the lessons they had learned. Yelena's bold choice and Ethan's kind heart had brought hope and unity to their worlds. Years later, historians would remember this time as the Great Bonding. They would tell stories of the princess who refused every suitor until a human made her believe in love and choice. They would speak of the engineer who crossed the stars and changed a world with kindness. And in the quiet palace gardens, the fountains still flowed, the flowers still bloomed, and under the twin moons, Yelena and Ethan stood together, partners in love and in hope.